Appreciate all of you. Celebrate bringing us back here. And I would think Frank Isola is celebrating a little bit. The Yankees coming back tonight against the Nats and Major League Baseball returning. Frank, what is the vibe now in New York? It seems like you guys are returning to some semblance of normalcy now, and with the Yankees coming back, that has to add to it a lot.
Well, you went to school in Washington, D.C., and you know how the weather gets at this time of year, a little hot, and then it rains.
It's a swamp in D.C.
So apparently they're expecting heavy showers tonight in D.C., so there's a very good chance after waiting all this time for the Yankees to play. And it's a classic matchup because it's Garrett Cole, who the Yankees signed as a free agent way back when, against Max Scherzer. Obviously, it's Washington coming off of a World Series, but it looks like that game, believe it or not, is going to get postponed. But last weekend, the Mets played the Yankees a couple of times. It was definitely a big deal. The Yankees look, I know they're only exhibition games, but the Yankees look pretty good. Unfortunately, I don't know if tonight's game is going to go off.
I didn't even look at the weather. I just assumed that it was going to actually take place, and maybe that's a rough move by me given 2020. That has to be like television executives have to be like, oh, my God, are you kidding me? Like we leave it so that we've only got 2 games going on. So it's not like they can even flip, right? They have the signature stage, and then, boom, we get a rain out, and then people aren't going to be able to watch. And then I guess if it rains in L.A. too, Danny G, it's not going to rain in L.A. If they got a rain out in L.A. as well, that would be an unbelievable disaster.
No rain here.
Yeah, all right. So we'll at least get the Dodgers going up against the Giants, but obviously that's not till 10 o'clock East Coast, and many people are going to be like, well, geez, thanks for that. So
they'll have
see.
to show. They'll show The Last Dance again, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think they'll put on? That's a good question. What are they going to put on? Everybody's going to be tuning in trying to watch baseball. Maybe they put on Game 7 of the Cubs back in the day in the World Series. I don't know.
It stinks, too, because if you remember, if you go back to the World Series last year, I still have that image of Garrett Cole warming up in the bullpen, and he never came in the game. So A.J. Hinch, which ended up being his last game as manager, because unfortunately after that scandal, he's the one – He got fired, but I still think of Garrett Cole standing there in the bullpen. But that's a great matchup, Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer. Fortunately, no fans would be in attendance, but it's still a pretty good game. And like I said, I think what I do know is if they don't get this game off tonight, both those guys will start tomorrow then.
Yeah. We're talking with Frank Isola at the Frank Isola on Twitter. All right, there's a ton of stories out there. But for you, how gratified are you just to have the ability to actually have a team sport back? And by next week, when the NBA is underway, we're going to really, and then the NHL, I mean, it's really going to suddenly become, we're going to go from a desert of sporting daily activities to an absolute cavalcade, a cornucopia of games, the likes of which we've honestly never seen.
You could feel it coming because yesterday, I mean, there's been so much soccer on. Even yesterday, I was watching Liverpool, Chelsea at the same time I'm watching the Clippers play. There was a ton of NBA games yesterday. And listen, I've covered the NBA for a long time, and preseason, there could be nothing painful sometimes as the preseason. Some people don't even like the regular season, so the preseason is tough, but it was good to see that. And let's face it, July 30th is going to be here before we know it. It's good to see actual games that count, and it's you just feel some momentum. Football training camp is going to start. I don't know about college sports, but there's definitely a lot more on. The crazy thing is, right, we sat around for so long, especially in the Northeast, where the weather wasn't that good and there was nothing on. Now the weather's beautiful, and I think a lot of us are going to be inside watching TV, which is probably part of the plan as well, to hope that it's a way to keep people at home.
Yeah, there's no doubt. All right, let's go to what you just mentioned, that Liverpool-Chelsea game. Is Christian Pulisic already the best soccer player in American history? I mean, I watched that yesterday, and first of all, the idea that I would put on a game, right? I mean, I occasionally watch EPL, but I was like, I want to make sure that I don't miss Pulisic the way he's been playing. He finally gets, I think it was subbed in, and then makes a run against a Liverpool that is just breathtaking in terms of what he was able to do to 3 or 4 different defenders, basically drop off a pass and give an easy goal assist. And then the goal he scored was just, I mean, it was a work of art. Jurgen Klopp on the sideline, it was like there was a little bit of pride in the way that he reacted because I think he had Pulisic at Dortmund, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And so they have a little bit of a relationship. But my God, I mean, since the restart in the English Premier League, you would be able to speak to this better than I can. It's not just that Pulisic has been incredible, it's that he's been one of the best players in the entirety of the English Premier League.
Look at you connecting all the dots with Jurgen Klopp at Dortmund.
There you go. I mean, this is how impressive that Pulisic is, that we are actually talking about him on the show. I mean, I think I don't want to overhype this guy, but I'm already doing it. I mean, I think he may be the greatest player already in the history of American soccer. He's 21 years old, and for a long time we've talked about, hey, when are we going to have in America one of the most electric goal scorers in the world? Because I really think that's what has to happen for soccer to go to the next level. People in America only want to watch if our guys are the best at what they do, right? I mean, I really think that factors in whether it's tennis, right? When we were really rolling with all the best American tennis players, people would watch at a high level, and I'm not trying to take away anything from the incredible talent that we've got in the world of tennis globally. But the fact there hasn't been a good American tennis player for men in a long time has directly impacted. Federer and Nadal are great, but the fact that neither one of them have any kind of American connection matters. And so you look at soccer, that's what we've been missing. I think we've got it all of a sudden. And I don't just think that he's the best American player ever. If you project, and I'm curious what you think, at the age of 21, you think about the 2022 World Cup. Okay, Pulisic's going to be 23. He's going to be really good as long as he stays healthy. Even if America's not great, and who knows what's going to happen with our national team, we could have one of the best, most electric players in the world. And in 2026, when the World Cup is going to be in the North America primarily, we could have one of the best players in the world. I don't think that's crazy to think about at all, because he would then be peaking, in theory, right at 27 years old. I mean, we've got an unbelievable run coming. In fact, if I could buy stock in any athlete right now in America, it would be Pulisic. I mean, I think he could become a LeBron-like, a Patrick Mahomes-like figure in the world of American soccer.
Yeah, and even on a bigger scale, because in Asia, too, where they love the Premier League. I mean, he's going to be able to make so much money over there, obviously in the United States and in Europe. But to your point, the two, the assist that he had was, I think, his best assist that he had on a goal. I mean, he beat three guys, and then his goal was terrific. I don't think we've ever had kind of an attacking player who plays with that much confidence. He might be Chelsea's best attacking player. And I think people to realize, Chelsea's one. They have a Russian owner. They're one of the wealthiest clubs in the world. They're one of the more popular clubs in the world. They're one of the best teams in the world. And this guy's doing it at such a high level. I still think back to the NBA when, like, the wave of European players were first coming over. You could tell, I don't know if the public, certainly the players kind of looked at them like, do these guys really belong here? And I've always kind of felt that about American players going over and playing for some of the top clubs in Europe. Yeah, some guys have been successful, but there's always kind of been this, are they really good enough? And you can tell that he's turning heads, because when he first started out there earlier this year, back in September, it wasn't great for him. Then he ended up getting hurt, but he's been unbelievable since the restart. But I still want to know why he didn't play over the weekend in the FA Cup. He didn't start this game, and all they needed was a point to qualify for Champions League, which, for people who don't know, that's the biggest club tournament in the world. It's worth a lot of money, a lot of prestige. If you win that, they still need to get at least a tie in their final game to qualify for this. So I still wonder if the manager there, Frank Lampard, who is an English legend, it's strange. I think he's become one of their better players, but their game over the weekend, Pulisic didn't play at all. He doesn't start this game. They were down 3-0 for crying out loud before they put him in the game, and allowed him to kind of. He almost got them back in it with the way that he played. But to your point, I mean, the guy. This is just like a different level that he's at, and to me, it's the confidence, and you could see that his teammates have a lot of confidence in him.
So what happens now with his schedule? I don't even know. You may know. So they're almost about to finish off the regular Premier League schedule, right? I mean, I don't think there are a ton of games left, as you just mentioned.
One game left.
Yeah, so what does he do now once that season is officially over? I mean, I'm sure, you mentioned the Champions League, things like that, but does he come back to America to train? Does he stay in Europe now? Like, what do you have any idea? I'm actually just fascinated by his time, the way he's going to – I kind of want to put him in bubble wrap, to be honest, because American soccer has been such a difficult thing to watch. Now that we finally got this prodigy, this incredible talent that I really think even for people who are not interested in soccer, he's good enough to make people interested in soccer, which is what, the sort of the American soccer has been looking for since all the way back in '94 when we had the World Cup on our shore for the first time. And now, 26 years later, boom, we finally got this American prodigy who I think at the age of 21 is poised to take American soccer by storm here. What's his setup for the summer? I want to keep him safe.
Yeah, their schedule is usually pretty nutty because they usually go back to training camp toward the end of July. And usually what a lot of these teams do is they go either play in the U.S., where they can make a ton of money playing exhibition games, which they charge way too much for, or they go over to Asia and they play. So he's got a game on Sunday. Then the following Sunday they got the FA Cup. And then right after that, they still have a Champions League match where I don't think they're going to advance. I think they got a bunch of goals to make up. Because the Champions League is doing something pretty cool. They're actually having a tournament in Portugal. It's going to be like a 12-day tournament. It's going to be round of 16, then there's one more game in the round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. I think they're going to try to do that over a 12-day period. So he'll probably get knocked out of that by early August. But I think their training camp is going to start right at the start of September.
Okay.
So if he wanted to come home, which I don't even know, I guess he would be allowed to travel back to the United States. Am I right about that?
I'm sure he could. He's the best soccer player in the country's history. I think we could figure out a way to get him back on shore if he wants to get here. If not, somebody needs to pull some strings to make sure that that's possible. But I would think if you got access to travel, I mean, I think there are flights coming in still from England, even though. Technically they're supposed to be shut down. I'm not sure what exactly is going on there.
Yeah, my son, who was living the life after graduation, he had been in Italy for 2 months, and he got back 2 weeks ago, but they didn't have a direct flight from Rome. He flew from Rome to Germany, then he flew back to the United States.
What was Italy like, by the way? Because I hear that it's basically back up and running. They're begging for tourists, if you're all over Italy, because the Americans are, and this is not just Italy. I mean, it's also Paris, London. During the summer, Americans usually flood to Europe. It's a huge percentage of the money that's being made in many of these tourist attractions all over the place. And I heard they're just basically empty. It's not obviously just Americans. There's not very many Chinese who are traveling, and I think the Chinese are the second most likely people to be traveling to Europe. So many of these places all over Europe that are usually swarmed with tourists in the summer are basically empty.
He was all over the country in the span of 2 months. And he has pictures of standing in front of places and being places, whether it's at Venice or standing in front of the Colosseum.
Yeah.
There's nobody around. He said it was incredible. Because you can get he's going to the Vatican. People, there was barely any because of no tourism, but for him it was great. He got to go everywhere he wanted. Restaurants were open, people were eating inside. They kind of tackled the whole thing pretty early on. They did a complete shutdown, obviously, over there, and that was one of the worst hit countries. But they're just not. The problem is no American tourists can get there.
Yeah,
that's what's killing them. And to your point too, I don't even think they're allowing the Asian tourists in there as well, which is a big part. But he said it was incredible. What a time to be over there with nobody there. Because when I was there over the summer, it was packed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I saw some pictures, even in Venice. It's been like there's so few people there that I guess the cruise ship's not coming in and everything else. The canals were so clear, the water was, you could see all the way to the bottom. Which they were like, we don't remember the last time, in Venice, that when you're, in the canals going through the city, that there was such little pollution or little, sort of water turgidity or whatever the word is there. But you could see all the way down to the bottom, which was kind of startling, amazing photos that I saw, which is in a city that is usually overwhelmed with tourists. There was virtually nothing. You mentioned the NBA.
It's like Nashville with better pizza. How about that? That's what it was.
You mentioned the NBA and the restart. You covered the league for a very, very long time. I saw the courts. I actually thought it looked pretty cool. Just watching the way it was going to play out. They've got all the. It doesn't look weird. Does that make sense? Like even though there's no fans present, it looks like they've designed it sort of in an aesthetically pleasing way for a television viewer. when you look at the NBA, I'm sure you're talking to some people who are around the bubble or in the bubble. What are you hearing about in terms of who looks good, which teams? Is there anybody out there that you're thinking, oh, I mean, effectively, this is like a new season? I know they're saying it's a continuation, but effectively, this is like a 3-month new season. What are you hearing? Who do you expect to be the best teams? Will it mirror what we saw in the season before the shutdown happened back in March?
It's funny. Giannis Antetokounmpo had made a joke, early on during a few months into the pandemic that he wasn't working out, and I didn't believe that for 1 minute because any of the serious players, especially the best players, were all going to get themselves ready. So I still think going into it, the best teams are going to be the ones that are right there at the top already, which are LeBron and the Lakers, Kawhi and the Clippers, Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks. I also think the Boston Celtics, they were playing pretty well, and Jason Tatum is, going to be in the All-Star MVP conversation. He's not going to win it, but he could finish in the top 5. So I think it's those guys. Because notice how anything that's been said kind of about the bubble and the restart, you haven't heard anything from LeBron. You didn't hear anything from Kawhi. Of course, you don't really hear much from Kawhi anyway. And nothing from Giannis, because I think those three guys believe they have the best chance to win a championship. That's why they've been willing to make, the quote-unquote sacrifice about going down there, maybe spending 3 months. So I still think it's those teams, because those were the best teams going into it. Those are 3 of the top players in the league, and those guys are all healthy now. So I still think it's those guys. I do find it funny that Giannis was asked about the MVP. He didn't want to talk about it, but LeBron, who knows how to work the media as well as anybody, started talking about himself as the third person about the MVP award and how people thought when LeBron was going to go out to the Western Conference, it wasn't going to be as good. So LeBron wants to win that award. I think it's going to be Giannis. I got my ballot the other day. So LeBron, I think, is a little bummed out that these 8 games aren't going to count toward any awards, and that these 8 games, Clay, are going to be interesting because for a lot of these teams, Milwaukee, the Lakers, the Clippers, the games really aren't going to mean that much for them because they're kind of already set where they're going to finish up. So they're almost going to use those 8 games as like tune-up games for their first playoff opponent. Memphis is a little bit different. Memphis has to hit the ground running because it's clear that the NBA wants Zion Williamson and the Pelicans in there. So Memphis has to be ready on day 1. Milwaukee, the Clippers, and the Lakers all kind of have that luxury of getting ready for game 1 of the playoffs.
Not to mention, we have to figure out what's going to go on with Zion. And I'm just intrigued to see overall. I think the quality of play in the postseason could be really good because you got guys who aren't traveling. I would think their energy would be really good because they don't have the full season that they've had to worry about. And also, I would think, you can't go out. It's not like you got guys out late night and things like that in the bubble. So I would suspect the overall quality of play is going to be really impressive.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I've heard a bunch of people say that same exact thing. The idea that all you're really going to be focused on is basketball.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of people, NBA people, that think the way you do, that because there's less distractions, there's less traveling, families aren't going to be there, that it's just about basketball, that the quality of play really will be better. As for Zion, it's impossible not to like Zion. I don't know why LeBron didn't put him in his movie Space Jam. That's like a character I think that people would like to see. He's a likable guy. The way that he plays is so unique. I'm just worried that it just always seems to be something. Even his college career, the poor guy blew out his sneaker. He hurt his knee.
Yeah.
Then he plays his first summer league game. He only plays, 9 minutes or one half, and he ended up getting hurt. We didn't see him again until February. Then even now during the shutdown, they bring his team to Orlando, and a few days into it, he had to return home. That's the only thing I'm worried about. Always, he seems like a nice guy, and I'm sure the reason that he left was legitimate. I'm just always worried. It just always seems to be something with him.
Outstanding stuff as always. He's Frank Isola. When we come back,